wish that we had gone to stayed in the organic school, because we could have learned so much in doing, and I think with Mrs. Johnson, she was around more at that time, and I think that she was the kind that everybody loved, and we called her Aunt Mettie, and she would get out and play games with us, and we used to have a lot of fun. But I don't remember any more about it than that.
Did you never come back to the organic school?
Yes, I came back junior high. Mrs. McCall was the teacher then. And I enjoyed it because we would go to different buildings for different classes. And then we'd all meet together in the high school building for assembly. And Mrs. Johnson, every time she was in Faro, she would come to the assembly, and she'd lead all the singing and do all the things that were done around there, that for the amusement of the children.
And you stayed right on through high school then?
Mm-hmm. Right through high school.
And graduated. You didn't take teacher's training?
I took teacher's training, and then after teaching 1 year in Faro, I went up to Port Washington and taught in one of her schools up there.
How long were you there?
2 years. Then I had to get married, so I couldn't teach any longer.
That was the school Kenny was in too, Port Washington.
Pardon me?
That was where Kenny was too, the school in Port Washington.
Oh, what?
Well, let's go back to Ronald and let him bring us up then to his graduation and what he did.
Well, I went to the organic school for my high school work. Mr. Nichols, I think, had charge of some of our classes, most of them. We had a lot of artwork and athletic program.
You had manual training too, didn't you?
We had manual training.
And didn't you take cooking?
No,
Or didn't you
no,
at
I
that
didn't
time?
take. I didn't take cooking. And I enjoyed the school very much. One thing that was different in the organic school from the public school, that we didn't have any examinations. The teachers were supposed to know the students well enough to know what they could do and what they remembered. And this apparently was accepted by the colleges because none of the students in the organic school had to take entrance examinations into college at that time. And I went to I went to Auburn University and then to Alabama in order to get my medical work. I had to leave Alabama because they only had 2 years medicine, and I went to University of Minnesota where I finished medicine, and then came back to Fairhope and practiced for a few years, 3 years, 4 years I guess, before I went in the Veterans Administration. And there they put me into to mental health work, and I ended up a psychiatrist. And I practiced that in Mobile, living in Fairhope all the time, but practicing in Mobile. Since then, until '73, then I gave up my private practice and I work in a clinic now 2 days a week. But the early years in school were very I enjoyed them.
Ronald, I think it's nice for us to know too that you married one of Marietta Johnson's
Oh, yes.
nieces.
Yes. And that was why I was, her family, Flo's family, lived in St. Paul on the banks of the Mississippi River. And we met, she was going to the University of Minnesota, and we met there. And she worked in a restaurant at noon and in the evening, and I got a job working there to get some of my meals, and that's where we really became acquainted. However, Flo's sister,
Beulah?
Beulah, yeah, was Flo's sister, and she lived in St. Paul also. And
Beulah had been down here.
we went there for dinner one day, and the girl that was with Flo, they were going, she was going what they call river banking, and she says, why don't you ask the young man that you met today? So she did, and that's how things started.
Beulah was a friend of Esther, Mrs. Johnson's niece.
Who was a niece of Mrs. Johnson, that's right.
And
And the secretary to the school.
Yeah. And they were very close. They lived up there close together, and then they came down here one winter, I think, and spent the whole winter, didn't they?
Yes. Yeah. Well, almost all of them.
I can remember things that I made at the organic school when I was in, I guess, junior high and high school. I made a cedar chest, what do you call these things you push around with dishes on them? Tea wagon. A tea wagon, and
Well, those were big items.
yeah, they were.
Who was your manual
Mr.
training
Frederick,
teacher?
he was a good one when it came to anything like that.
Yes, he was.
He would help you with them too. And then I made a ring in the jewelry. My father had been given some 2 or 3 stones, moss agates or something like that, and I made a ring to fit one of them. And I was real proud of it.
Of course you were.
Until he came down on something and broke the stone.
What in the high school is outstanding in your memories of your subjects that you liked best? Or you felt that were probably the best for your growth?
What was the question first?
What were the subjects in high school that you liked best and felt that were so important to you?
Folk dancing, for one. I liked folk dancing very much. In fact, when I went up to Fort Washington, I taught folk dancing to the children up there. And
What about the
folk dancing and basketball.
basketball? Had wonderful basketball teams. What about your academic subjects? Did you have a
I'm
favorite?
trying to think,
And who were your teachers?
Mr. What was his name? I can see his face, but I can't. Trask
I remember.
was the teacher in the high school.
He was also the basketball coach.
Yes, he was. He taught, didn't he teach history?
I wouldn't know because I wasn't in high school at that
You weren't
time.
up that far yet.
Not quite.
I thought maybe you
Did
might.
you have Pop Nichols?
Yes, I had him in geometry and algebra.
Bill Edwards, perhaps?
I beg your pardon?
Bill Edwards?
No, that was
Miss-
a little bit before my time, I think.
Mr. and Mrs.
I think he
Edwards.
followed.
Did you have Grace Rotzel
Yes.
for English?
Yep. I liked her very much.
She became the director of the school in Rose Valley in
Oh, did she?
Pennsylvania. That's what she left us to become. And stayed with that school until her retirement.
What happened to her friend that used to go around together all the time?
Alice Harrington.
Yes, Al's Harrington.
She taught folk dancing along with Charles Raybould.
Yeah,
We looked her up in New York when we were up there, living up there. And she came and had dinner with us on Sunday.
Yeah.
And but then we lost track of her, and I didn't have any idea what happened to her.
No, I knew Grace, and who was the other one?
Alice Harrington.
Alice Harrington. Alice was teaching at the school in Connecticut, where I was for a year.
In Greenwich.
Teaching.
Greenwich, Connecticut.
Greenwich.
Was that after she was here?
No, that was before
Before
she
she
was
came
here.
down.
Yeah.
Do you both?
She and Grace came here after. I met them up there, and they came here after I was.
Do you both remember Mr. Raybould, Charles Raybould?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
You couldn't forget him.
No. Wonderful
He
instructor.
was quite a character.
See, he came to us directly from having studied under Cecil Sharp in England, and then had the tragic death in
Yes.
the plane wreck with Mrs. Botstein, who was his accompanist.
Well, that was too bad. He certainly could organize